Hello, everybody, and welcome to the broadcast. We're going to be watching the 2020 LA Throwback Finals between COU Color of Ultimate Team Biles and a team called NOMO and Friends out of Calgary and Edmonton. We're going to be commentating the game, watching and reliving the fun, followed by a discussion about Color of Ultimate and generally race in and outside of Ultimate. So before we get started, we're going to really quickly introduce ourselves. I'll start us off. My name is Amel. I live in Oakland, California. I play for San Francisco Fury. I coach Stanford Superfly right now. Shout out Superfly. Played for Penn State Crisis. Shout out Crisis. And why do I want to be a part of this conversation today? For literally so many reasons. First, because the game and the weekend was very fun, and I'm excited to watch and relive those moments with you all. Second, because I have a lot of thoughts and feelings right now centered around race, and this seemed like a really good opportunity for me to share that with a wider audience and use those productively. And then lastly, because the idea of sitting in front of a live stream and having this conversation made me really uncomfortable. And I think that that's a really good thing, and that I want to practice having this discussion with you all in front of a wider audience.
Sweet. I'm Jasmine Childress. I've been playing Ultimate for a couple of years now. So right now I play for the UCSB Burning Skirts, Go Skirties. Last club season I played with Wildfire out of San Diego. And why am I here today? I mean, I echo everything that Amel just said, but I think given the mission around the Color of Ultimate, which started back in Atlanta, and we'll see the championship game here in LA, I think this was an opportune time to mix Frisbee with some social commentary on what's going on in the world today. So that's why I'm here.
I'm Tyler Hochhalter. I'm from Calgary, Alberta. I've been playing for 9 or so years competitively, and I've been playing with both men's teams in Calgary and Edmonton, Whiskey Jacks in Calgary and Alberta Flatball Club in Edmonton, as well as this year joining Team Canada for Men's Masters, where we'll play in Australia next year when this is all over. And I was excited to join this conversation again, to watch this super fun game that we played and remember all the good moments and fun times with this awesome team. And then I'm just super grateful to be part of the discussion we're going to have, and I'm excited to learn and engage and just help change myself to help change the world right now.
My name is Heather Shields. I'm also from Calgary, Alberta. I've been playing Ultimate for about 6 years. Right now I'm the captain and player on LIT, which is the Calgary mixed team, and I played in 2019 on the U24 women's. I'm here to reflect and watch on the really fun and competitive game with this panel and showcase what a special tournament that Throwback is. And I'm very fortunate to be here to add awareness and show my support for the movement. So I want to thank Color of Ultimate and UltiWorld for including me.
Sweet. So that's all of us. Before we jump into the game, we've got a couple things to put on your radar. So first, this stream is affiliated with a fundraiser. Basically, starting right now, if you do one of two things, well, let me say one of the two things. First, you can subscribe to UltiWorld, and in the next 24 hours, all of the proceeds are going to be going towards Reclaim the Block, which is an organization in Minneapolis that's aiming to distribute funds away from police departments and towards other organizations for keeping communities healthy and safe. You can either do that by subscribing to UltiWorld, or you can make a one-time donation. If you make a one-time donation that's $50 or more, all of those proceeds are still going to Reclaim the Block, but you're also going to be getting a free annual membership to UltiWorld and also a free Black Lives Matter jersey thanks to Savage. So I think the details of that fundraiser are going to be in the chat and also in the description. And yeah, that's the fundraiser information.
Sweet. And then we also want to preface with just touch a little bit on the mission of what LA Throwback is, which is this tournament held in Santa Monica every year. And they really focus a lot of the money that comes through to the tournament on generating that and giving it back to players in the local community. So some of the teams that were a part of the 2020 LA Throwback were LA Astro, which is a new women's professional team, Loyola Marymount, Cal State Long Beach, Occidental, and UCLA. A lot of players from those various teams helped run the tournament. So they got the experience of seeing how a tournament is run. They were paid for their efforts, and most of the money that is generated from the tournament goes back into those teams, those communities, and portions of the generated money also goes to grants for diversifying people in Ultimate. And that was a huge reason why Color of Ultimate chose to play at LA Throwback this year.
Shout out to LA Throwback. All right, I think without further ado, we're ready to watch this game.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. And we're back.
Hey, everybody. I'm so hyped for this game.
Yeah. Me too.
Oh, wow. Seeing Landon again after learning that he's the youngest player on your team is just blowing you away.
Yeah, everybody mentally prepare for this kid.
It's only 19.
Yes, he doesn't have a number on the back of his jersey there.
He just is Landon.
Oh, no.
Oh, while we're at it, I think it would be a good time to mention, I think all of us sort of here in this discussion today are pretty interested to see where people are watching from today. So if you want to boost your location in the chat, that'd be super awesome just to see, you know, the number of people that we reach tonight.
Yes, please.
Oh, Ben.
Everybody, this guy with the disc is Landon, who we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Jasmine, what are you doing? Up.
It was too far.
Heather, I think I really like matching up with you in this game. I think you really put me to the test on day 2 of a beach tournament for sure.
Yeah, there was lots of games where you knew when the women were really being used, and your team definitely was one of them. We were tired keeping up with everybody, keeping those matchups tight.
Wow, Sadie. Okay. Great D. Okay, Landon. Here we go. And I think we can kind of see on the video, but this sand field right here has seen a lot of action this weekend, and so there are like craters, I think, in the middle of the pit that made it really nice and fun to run through.
Or jump out of, or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you go up to jump, but you actually end up lower because you go into a hole.
All right, Jakeem with the upline defense.
Yeah. This was a long first point. Forgot about this.
Yeah, I actually didn't
Yeah, me
remember.
too.
Let's see if you get it this time.
Oh, Heather. Yes. Great grab. Great bid, Sadie.
Yeah, nice
And
throw.
Sadie in the green
field.
here. Yeah, great throw. Sadie is coming out of Ohio State and was a 2019 Callahan finalist, which for college ultimate in the U.S. is, or I guess the U.S. and the teams that are a part of the tournaments from Canada too. It's a player voted big recognition award, and Sadie is really, really good. Her throws can put us all to shame, I think.
They're fantastic.
Yeah, we'll see some of them later.
I think both games we played against you, we had no answer.
Yeah. And then Sadie also, in just a little plug for our showcase game that we had with the other Color of Ultimate team, Sadie has a huge bid in the end zone. That's just amazing.
Jason right there.
You already see how tight it's going to be.
Jason's was our youngest player. Is he a youngest player? Is this true?
I think so. Yeah. Jason, Valley Pal, do you want to put in the chat? Weren't you 19 during this tournament, friend? You and Landon tied for youngest.
Also, 2019 Callahan nominee. Let's go.
Yes. Yeah, so we go down kind of early in this game. It was an interesting, our team was coming off of a pretty tightly battled semifinals game, so I know we were all feeling it during this finals.
Jakeem saving the day as a handler. Jakeem is a national treasure. Also a D1 defensive back football for college.
Yeah. Jakeem, I think a nice fun fact, he had never played Frisbee on sand or on the beach before this, and I think it just looks like he still wasn't playing on sand. The rest of us were, but he was somehow running on grass.
Yeah, that's the throw we practice, Jazz. That's the one.
Yikes. That's the throw my coach hates to see, honestly. But thanks, Lauren, for the save there.
We've got another young guy on our team getting the disc now, Alex Bedard, who's also 19, maybe even 18.
Oh,
he's played for Team Canada a couple times.
Yeah, he played U19 and
18, 19.
Classic Heather. Classic.
Heather. Oh, but he got sent back. Oh, Devin with the hand block.
I know Ryan remembers that one.
Okay, I wish that everybody could just watch that throw from Sadie 1,000 times. Was that a high release lefty flick? I hope that people caught that. I think it's going to happen again. Seriously.
Yeah.
Who knows that?
Wow. Wow.
Only Sadie.
Boom.
So good. So good.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And she's not a lefty, people. She's not a lefty.
Nice.
Nice try, Troy.
I think Jakeem, he pulled a lot. The guy who just threw the disc, he pulled a lot for our team over the tournament weekend, and they were always so good. Just the placement was unreal. And especially, I think it's kind of hard to tell sometimes, especially on sand, but it was kind of windy the whole weekend, and so it's not an easy feat to throw long throws, period, like that one, which was amazing. Jasmine, what are you doing?
This one was so
Great
close.
bid.
It was hard to tell if it was in or out.
Yeah, it was such a sick bid.
One thing that I forgot to say at the beginning, I'm the only person in this panel that was not in this game.
You were there.
Just for context, COU went to Throwback as two teams, Team Biles and Team 1L. Team Biles was in the final. My team was like a field over playing the third place game. Oh, Jesus, so close. Playing the third place game. But we like mosey over halfway through. You know, after. But now I'm like a part of Biles. I'm basically on Biles.
Oh, yeah. We've adopted you. Great look, Tyler, to Landon.
I love that kid.
There's a lot of completed throws between you two in this game.
Between Tyler and Landon.
Yeah.
That is not false.
Boosted.
Right.
Nice
Good.
You didn't
read.
trip over the line there.
Lauren for the second score of our team. Yes, and Devin with the assist. Good looks.
Oh, speaking of Devin's going to join us a bit later, but we got to shout out at least Devin at the moment as one of the founding members of COU.
Yes, and for the work that he has put into making tonight happen. I think it wouldn't have happened without Devin and a lot of other behind the scenes players. So thank you.
That comes Devin.
Is that another
Landon.
Tyler Landon connection? Oh my gosh, shocker. So good. Clearly we didn't have an answer for you.
That's the last one, though, I swear. Oh, it's so easy to just get that sucked right back into this game.
I know.
Oh, wow.
Devin. Ah, nice grab, Lish.
Y'all played each other before in the tournament, right? You should talk about that. This is the second.
Yeah, very first game we played, we showed up, and these guys all showed up at the same time, just meeting each other for the first time. And we kind of ended up stealing a win because I think they just hadn't meshed yet, and we're like, oh, this is the time. Yeah, first game.
What'd you say, Mel? Yeah,
That was your first.
Yeah, that was a pretty fun game. Yeah, it was. I think I knew 2 people on the team that I had met in person previously, and so we were just kind of on the field playing this game. Byron, huge layout. Couldn't get it that time, but this kid is a master at throwing his body. But yeah, I mean, our first matchup that we had was pretty fun because we'd put 5 people out on the line and we'd be like, okay, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name? All right, cool. We'll figure it out in a moment. It was a really fun game to play. So I'm kind of glad we could end off the tournament with like a 1-1, 1 win for each team.
We were definitely keeping tabs on you guys throughout the tournament. We kept winning after that. We kept winning after that, and we're like, oh, they're getting so much better. We can see it from the sideline. This will be a really fun game if we end up matched up in the end, and it was.
Yeah, I think even through sort of like day 2 fatigue, just the chemistry that we had on and off field as a group was just unmatched, and it was a great experience to have.
Tyler and Heather, can you talk about what NOMO is so people like have some context there?
Yeah, so NOMO it stands for North of Montana because we're a collection of players from Alberta, which is above Montana. But Montana is not MO, it's MN, so north of Missouri still counts, but it's just a little accident. But yeah, we're a 4-4 team that are now branching out into picking up players and different variations of the sport, and LA Throwback's become one of our staples. We love it.
And NOMO actually got 3rd in the indoor 4-on-4 last year.
Oh wow, that's huge. That's awesome.
Is that like a national competition?
Yeah, every year in April. But
Nice.
we don't get a lot of beach play, so it's fun to make this an annual thing and get down.
Tyler throwing buckets and also catching buckets.
Yeah, wow.
Kayla with a great throw.
That's a nice throw. Yeah,
That was
perfect.
If I do say so myself, getting broken around, it was a great throw.
Awesome.
Only love my limes and my dimes. I'm not sorry. I think one of the things that we had a lot of fun with on the sidelines for our team bios was coming up with cheers. And such a great play. Great teammate backup. Yeah, I think it was fair to say that everybody on the team, it didn't really matter if you were a part of the 5 on the field for that point or the sideline, you were equally as hype to be there and play or support, and that was a really fun experience to have.
Yeah, I feel like by the time we were at this last game in the tournament, we were all exhausted, and the only thing giving us energy was just the sideline hype and everybody cheering us on. And it was great from both sidelines. And what I loved is that both teams were following the play back and forth and not just staying in their little bundle, so they were really involved in the play.
Yeah. Retweet. Sadie to Abby Chang with the disc right there. She actually was this year's 2020 Donovan winner, which is the sort of like MVP of D3 right there with the white hat. Go Abby. Yeah, Abby Chang, 2020 Donovan winner. She's so good.
Everybody go look at the video.
Yes, please go watch her highlight video. Ahmad, drop it in the chat for people for later.
Also Sadie.
And just another beautiful throw from Sadie.
This is AJ. AJ was on the AUDL anti-racism panel from last night, which I hope a lot of people in the chat watched. It was very, very touching.
Yeah, and I think it's still, if you didn't get a chance to watch it last night, the link is still live, and I think it was a really great experience to have watched because players were really vulnerable and I think made a lot of progress towards the conversations that a lot of us are grappling with today. So.
Who said like Ariana Grande?
I don't know. We still can't figure that out. Oh, Jason.
Oh, bud.
No, Jason. So I never met Jason before this tournament, and I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. He is such a close friend now, and I think this like hug that we share, where we didn't even really know each other, just like, I don't know, sums up our relationship that just blossomed over the course of 48 hours. What a great pal.
Oh. I can't handle this.
Yeah, so at this point, we're at sort of halftime in the game. So the game was played to 15, and the score is 8-6 now. Also, right now, we're looking at a shout out to our sponsors who helped make Throwback possible.
The beach pizza has arrived as well.
Yes, the beach pizza. That beach pizza looks so good.
It's magical.
Oh my gosh, such a huge bid. Huge bid, Heather. I don't really think people appreciate like how hard it is to like take off and like launch yourself from the sand like that, but it's just a beautiful, beautiful bid.
Just
I think if you do it again, maybe you'll. Yeah.
Devin.
Not really that soft to land on either.
No.
Yeah, pretty counterintuitive. You would think landing on sand wouldn't hurt, but it does.
You don't slide. There's nothing to absorb your fall.
No.
Oh, go Ryan! Go Ryan!
Oh, that's gonna hurt. That one hurt.
Another big bid. I know. Like, I hurt watching it. Just big bids.
He did not get back up.
All around. Yeah.
Ooh, this one's looking stagnant.
Jakeem.
Oh, it's
Jakeem.
Seth Jakeem.
Fly boy. Jeez. And this is lockdown defense. This is what lockdown defense looks like. NOMO. Wow, wow, wow.
There's Eden there.
So
She was so good in this game. I hate and love playing against her because she's from Edmonton, so often when we have tournaments we play against each other. She can literally throw around any mark that she wants.
Jeez, she's so good. I definitely think she was a key. I mean, we said it before, but I think NOMO, you all really did a great job of like running your plays through your women on the field, which you don't really see a whole lot in mixed ultimate. And so that was, I think we try to do the same thing on our team. So it was really awesome to see. Oh my God, I have to. Oh, it's so good.
Oh man.
Oh,
maybe we come back to this story about that?
I think we come back to this story. We come back to this story because this that D deserves its own moment. Everybody's gassed. Everybody's exhausted at this point.
Okay, just to give like a little precursor to the story, that Jasmine reaction, as like hilarious as it was, is probably not the full Jasmine reaction if Jasmine wasn't like trying to like kind of hold back a little bit. But even still, it's gonna like come back so many times as highlights throughout the video. It's so good.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Great feat, Ben.
Oh, Ben.
Ben Fang.
Oh, Ben.
Ben Fang, a shout out to him, who, along with Claudia Vasquez, who was on the other Color of Ultimate team, they were responsible for, I think they were instrumental in putting together the Color of Ultimate game, Throwback, yes, and the Color of Ultimate game that happened in Atlanta as well. So shout out to them.
I hear the field talk by Shani.
Yeah, so lots of field talk. Shani, who is just kind of like the light of our team, I think. Oh, Landon! He's 19! Gosh.
Something to point out is how often you see us going on with 3 women and 2 men, which we didn't see a lot in the tournament, but both the teams here did that a lot. So we got a lot of use out of our women, strong women.
Yeah, I actually think there's only 1 point in this game where it was 3 men and 2 women. And maybe that's just because we were all so gassed. We're like, we're taking one, but it was so fun to play with majority women. Yeah, your turn, guys.
Yeah, so this one, I think we were so close. She saw me coming, so she did a good job and boxed me out a little bit, but we still had a little collision. We just confirmed that she did have the disc in her hand, so just an uncontested foul.
Yeah. And I think speaking to the calls of this game, Sadie dunk on her. Jeez. She's so good. Jeez. I think one thing that we did really well, like from both teams, we're talking out the calls. So Ultimate is, as we're watching a self-officiated game, so you call your own fouls. And I think both teams just were really awesome about listening respectfully to each other, resolving quickly, and then just like moving on in a really great sportsmanship-filled way.
Yeah, it's so fun when both teams are celebrating both teams.
Yeah, and for a game that was, a little bit physical, we had some collisions here and there, but never really escalated beyond oh, my bad, I hear you, we'll like resolve and keep going. And you don't always get that in Ultimate.
I love the trust that Karis has in that throw. Such a small window, but she trusts that she can hit it in that angle and we'll run onto it properly.
Definitely.
There's Karis again.
This inside throw!
Yeah.
It's like butter. I want it. Oh, so good. So good.
Show it again. Oh, Karis.
So good. One more time. Jeez.
Karis played at Worlds 2018 with Dinah, and they finished 4th place.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Heartbreaking bronze game to watch.
Jeez.
But she's one of the strongest players in this league.
Yeah, that's wild. Oh, great bid, Heather.
Always.
Always bidding.
I wanted it. I couldn't get it.
Oh, good looks. Good looks.
But
You're right. Lots of Devin and Landon in this game.
Yeah.
Great throw.
Oh, beautiful. Not a huge window to hit either. And with wind, it's a great throw. Jakeem on the pool again. Our D1 football player on the line. Again, with pools that were just amazing.
Yeah, did that just land just inside the back line?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sadie.
Oh.
Tough one.
Super tough.
Oof. I remember Sadie did get raw of DPs in the end. Like the same shot, like just her and her person are like alone in the end zone skyball.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great grab. Oh,
Lauren!
Lauren.
Let's go through.
I feel like she just spun on a dime. And another full field throw.
Another
full
one.
field.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Vomit.
Sadie, you're so good. Jakini, you're so good.
I feel like Abby right there. I also feel like what you were describing Shani was doing with the sand.
Yeah.
Jasmine?
What'd you say?
Oh, you're telling us about Shani's reaction during this tournament?
Oh, yes. Shani had such a beautiful reaction. Cheers. So if she was on the sidelines and anybody ever did something that was just so impressive, Shani would scoop up some sand and then turn around and then like throw it up. So it's just kind of like, that was so sick. Like, I think it was probably the most creative cheer.
Ultimate Instagram. If anybody wants to see.
Definitely there is.
Wow, Byron.
Big bid. Byron is another one who like seemingly just with ease throws his body around and then pops right back up. Come on, Heather. There it is.
Oh, there we go.
The pancake
That's the one.
That happens. And a little bit winded. Just a little bit.
That's so good. Oh, so good, so good.
I remember the people on the sideline, they're like, "You're my hero."
Yes, it's true.
Oh.
No.
Oh, the mismatch. Tyler, how tall are you?
What mismatch? What mismatch?
6'3".
I think Tyler, you're 6'3", and Abby's like 5'4", maybe. That was fun. That was fun.
That was fun.
Maybe taller than that. Sorry, Abby. 5'5", 5'6". Still.
Tried your best.
Yeah.
Oh, we were speaking about Shani earlier. Shani founded Disc Division, which
yes.
which is the platform for kind of understanding diversity and specifically how Ultimate plays into race relations. So that was, she's had a couple of amazing podcasts so far, and y'all should follow her on Instagram and Twitter.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, she was huge in putting together the panel from last night as well. And just somebody who I personally admire because it seems like she never tires of giving energy. And you don't find that in people every day. Yeah, really appreciate her for that. Come on, Lauren. Yeah.
Classic Tyler throwaway. She read it. She knew. It was great.
AJ wants it. Shoots it to Jakeem deep. Nice.
AJ. Oh, finally, Team Manuel. Here we are. Here we go.
Yes,
we're on the
our
sidelines.
teammate.
Let's go.
Yeah. Extra cheering fuel for you guys and us.
I think I really like the grit that NOMO shows during this point.
Yeah, 14-10.
We're in a pretty big hole.
Yeah.
I just remember how much my legs burned. I made a couple of cuts and just trying to keep going.
I know, even on defense, I was like, I hope I can just stay right here and I don't have to run that much, but especially in the middle. I mean, you can see now that it's just a landfill of sand. Oh,
such a nice grab. Eden again.
So close. Eden, yeah. It's a good look. Great look.
Shout out to Troy, who gave it to Eden there with the shoulder place. He does a lot of work in Edmonton and coaching.
Nice.
Wait, Heather, can you say that again?
I think we
hear
you. Troy there with the shoulder brace. He does a lot of juniors work in coaching in Edmonton, so shout out to him for all the work he does.
Oh, great bid. That's a great touch. I don't know if we get a good camera angle, but that was a really good read.
Yeah, Paris with the D.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a million years ago we were playing ultimately.
Oh! Such a good layout grab.
Such a nice layout. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so good. Layouts everywhere.
Alana and Aaron.
That was great.
Bring back the
so
that was amazing.
I like Kiera giving her the face wash.
Yeah, the more you sweat, the more the sand sticks to you.
Oh, Devin.
Beautiful.
And
wow.
Every time. It gets me every time.
So good.
Oh my gosh.
Up in the field.
And that was the
Great
game.
game, guys.
Byron with the grab. Devin shooting from way downtown.
Oh.
Damn.
Jeez. So impressed every time. Oh, that was such a good game. Such a fun game. Remember when we played sports?
It really was.
Yeah. That's a hug and high five.
I feel like on top of feeling like so victorious and just like such a good unit, we just like we're all for the bed. Like,
Yeah.
our bodies at that point were like not holding it together.
Yeah. And I encourage everyone,
yeah,
so now we're sort
I
of...
personally won, though I did not play in that game.
Yeah. I encourage everybody, if you're still watching, you know, this is the end of the game, but please, please, please stay with us. We've got such a great discussion to be had right now.
And we back. I think at this point, Devin's going to join us. Devin Cox, are you there?
Devin.
Oh,
hey,
out of the sky. All right,
man,
so
I really enjoyed watching that game.
Yeah, same. I think now we're going to get into discussing the game and Color of Ultimate. But I guess first and foremost, before we do, a little disclaimer. We got Heather and Tyler here, and we're really grateful that they're here. I think that in this discussion, they're going to kind of take the back seat a little bit and allow Jasmine and I's stories as it pertains to Ultimate and beyond kind of be in the forefront. But like Heather and Tyler in their personal lives are not necessarily only listening. They're also going to be engaging with people to affect change. So we really appreciate that y'all are here. And yeah, let's get started.
Cool. So the first question that we have for Amel and Jasmine, what does Color of Ultimate mean to you?
That's a really
it's a good one. It's a big one. It's a good one. I think
so. Personally, Color of Ultimate was like, obviously in the rest of the Ultimate world, there aren't many opportunities for people of color to link up. Like, I haven't had many experiences with people of color in Ultimate, and yeah, being able to like be on a team concentrated with people who look like me, who celebrate like me, who play like me, who allow me to do me in my full capacity. It just felt so good.
Yeah, I think you hit a lot of nails on the head right there, Mel. For me personally, I have been an athlete my whole life. My mom and my dad were really great at their athletes, basketball, track, and swimming. And so it was kind of a given that I was going to go into a bunch of sports and hopefully be good at one. I don't know. But I think in my short time on this planet, I've done gymnastics, tap, volleyball, basketball, track, swimming, and now Ultimate on a variety of different stages. But this Color of Ultimate community and this weekend, that weekend especially, was mind-blowing. I had never seen so many people of color in one space to play one sport before. And it was just so heartening to have people that look like you surrounded by you. And I think Amel touched on the celebrating like you was huge.
You should start talking about them with Jason.
I was gonna say, if I may, I'll slip into a story that I didn't even realize was my story until rewatching this game for tonight's panel. But that celebration of, you know, me wall for Jason's huge D. I mean, it was awesome. It was sick. Every single time I watch it, I just have this flamboyant reaction. But I realized that if we went back to watch that play, where the play happened, so I was facing the field, where the play happened was to my left. And because of feedback that I've received from other teams in the Ultimate community about my aggressiveness, flamboyantness of cheering, making them feel uncomfortable when I am trying to hype up a teammate, has affected the way I celebrate. So I always turn away from the play as to hopefully not add fuel to the fire, so to speak. And it just so happened that this time there was a camera in the way of where I turned. And I've had this conversation with my teammates on the skirts, because it seemed like in 2018, when we were playing nearly every single high caliber game that we played, I was at the center of unacceptable celebrations, which in my mind, I am somebody who is going to validate and hype up my teammates in the best way possible, never in a derogatory manner, never at the expense of the other team, but because I'm arm wavy and I'm vocal and I want to be immersed in my teammates, that has been received as me being aggressive at times. So I just realized that it was a change that I didn't know I made to make myself a little bit more palatable to the community.
One of our teammates, Stasi, she wrote an article for New York Gridlock, and it also describes her experience with Colored Ultimate, and it's really powerful. So if y'all want to check it out, hopefully some mods can link that in the chat.
Also right now, like, the group me that we have from this event has been, obviously it's been lit. A lot of group me's have been lit to all of us, but like the support that we're getting right now in particular from this community, I don't know how I would be really processing some of the events that we're seeing in the world without like getting to call you, Jasmine, getting to call some people in this group and getting to like use this group as an opportunity for like processing, trying to affect change, using the resources we have in the group to like make things like this possible. Even this discussion is happening.
Yeah, that's a really good example of how like our national and like distant communities can help us get through this. Why don't y'all speak on some of the local communities? Like how has that been since before and after recent events?
Well, I recently moved to Oakland. I'm a PhD student at Stanford. I lived around Stanford, which is about like 45 minutes south of here for, the last 3 years. But I moved to Oakland this past weekend. And I went from like in Palo Alto, there were a few demonstrations in regard to the events of last week that like made me feel like I was seen, made me feel like there were people around me that cared. Since moving to Oakland, I feel like a larger step has been taken. I went to a protest on my birthday this past Monday, and like the overwhelming support of this city in particular is like night and day, I believe, between Palo Alto, but also just in general, like in the Bay Area, there are events, literally many events all day, every day for this past week through the weekend. There are a lot of resources talking about protests and sit-ins and caravans and bike brigades and dance parties. There are people using every opportunity they can to try to shed light and bring change. What about you, Jazz?
Yeah, so I mean, sports aren't really being played right now. So a huge thing that our team is trying to do, actually one of my teammates and really good friends, Caitlin Weaver, shout out, it's her birthday today. Our group chat has, our team group chat through UCSB has been sharing a lot of resources, having a lot of discussions, and then Caitlin took it upon herself to sort of challenge our team that in lieu of a celebration for her birthday to donate to a couple of organizations instead, which is huge and admirable. In terms of the greater community, so I live in Santa Barbara, California right now. I've been here for 5 years. I'm also a PhD student like Amel at UCSB. And so I'm a part of a couple of different communities, but I think Santa Barbara is a little bit different because it's not a big city. It's not a medium-sized city. It's a pretty small city. And I also live about 4 miles away from Oprah and Ellen DeGeneres right now. So it's a very disparate community in terms of wealth distribution and people's everyday lived experiences. And there have been a couple of peaceful demonstrations here in town, but I know the Black community that we have here that I've sort of tapped into has been reluctant to sort of participate in a lot of these things because we're so hyper visible in Santa Barbara. There are no Black people in Santa Barbara. There are 42 Black graduate students at UCSB across all departments, full-time, part-time, master's, PhD, resident, commuter. So we are very hyper visible, and we know that we are putting ourselves at an even greater risk of heading to these protests to be seen. And also personally, I'm stuck in a boot right now, so I can't actually walk anywhere. Yeah, but I know maybe I'll throw it to Heather and Tyler, because we were talking the other night about sort of how this is greater than the United States right now. If you all want to touch on that.
Yeah, Calgary definitely isn't known for their protests, but the protests that we've had in the last few days especially has been huge. Like thousands of people downtown. There's this one viral video of the protests walking through downtown, and there's a train and traffic stopped for over an hour to let the thousands of people go through. So it's crazy to see how far this has reached, and it's really good to see the awareness that's happening.
As well as this, like, people you wouldn't expect to be out protesting, just like up in arms and yelling support and like bringing to light like Indigenous atrocities that still continue to go on, and like our own Canadian issues that we swept under the rug for so long. Also now trying to be held up alongside everything else that's going on.
I'm curious, what is the difference that you're seeing in the police? Like, that's a huge American issue right now, is police brutality, obviously. And like, I'm wondering how that compares to Canada.
They're a lot sneakier with their violence, I think. Like, there's not as many, I mean, just by population, there's less, maybe less offensive, but like less being caught on camera right now. And even now in the last few days, like more and more and more are starting to come forward, and people being just over policed. And like Calgary's done a really good job of like letting the protesters do their things, not instigating anything. Like they're just letting it happen and putting out really like nice sentiments. And so that's cool to see within our own city. But like obviously, like not every cop is a good cop, not every cop is a bad cop. But
and we see a lot of these protests through the use of social media, and the fact that everyone has a camera on them at all times is making it super visible. What do y'all think about the use of social media right now, post George Floyd, and during the coronavirus? And how do you think this is it a positive? Are people using it the right way? When is it not being used the right way?
Yeah. First of all, I had a realization today that without virality, so many atrocities already go unseen. I can't even imagine how many are just fully uncaptured, that like justice is not served. Social media has been like an extreme utility in that regard. As for social media in like a social sense, I've had ups and downs with my opinions here. I think at first I was looking at my social media feeds a bit cynically, and I don't think that I was giving people on social media enough credit. But since I've had basically a complete change of heart, and I'm realizing that if people don't express what side of the story they're on, it's really, really hard for people of color to know where you stand, and that it's really important to show, and in whatever way feels authentic to you, that you're there for the people in your life, and that you're actively trying to make change. I'm like, now when I look through social media, I'm extremely grateful for people who are doing this for the first time, people who are trying to say like, I haven't taken action before, but I'm going to now. It makes a world of a difference for me. I think that's my conclusion at this point.
Yeah, I think I have a lot of similar feelings, especially regarding my sentiments on social media changing depending on the day or the time of day even. I know that I personally have, engaged with my social networks based on who is active, who is being involved in what's going on. But I also know that there are a lot of people out there who sort of hop on things because it's trending, and there's social pressure to post on social media right now without the like accountability that should come or could come from social networks. And just as a personal aside, I know that I had a not so great run-in with somebody who I held pretty near and dear to my heart in the Ultimate community. And almost a month ago to the day, it was a couple of days before the Ahmaud Arbery story broke, we were having a pretty intense conversation, and they looked me in my eyes and told me that they didn't understand why so many conversations had to involve my experiences as a Black woman, and they didn't want to hear them. And it hurt. It sliced me harder than those Confederate flag slinging Indiana racists that I grew up around, because that person was close to me and I trust them. I still have a lot of, love and connection for them. But I just said, you know what, if I know that you don't support me, I can't interact with you anymore. And then we fast forward to, with the black square posting on social media to say that you're not going to post on social media movement. That person participated and posted a black square and said, now is the time to put things on pause and listen. And it was like an extra stab, because less than a month ago, I was told by this person that it was some semblance of they don't care about my experiences. They don't value my experiences, yet are posting to give space for people of color, Black people, to share their experiences. And so I go back and forth on whether I appreciate social media, because I know that there are genuine people out there, and I know there are people who are just posting for the social pressure, and it makes it hard for me to decide who I can trust and who I can't trust. Be they friends, acquaintances, person on the street who's a friend of a friend,
I will say that, going along with that, I do believe that posting on social media where you stand is an extremely important thing to do at some point in whatever way feels right to you. But make sure that you're kind of looking inward and making sure that you're doing what's in your heart. You're projecting what's in your heart. If you're not, let's do some internal soul searching. But personally, I'm reading a ton of authenticity from the people in my feed, and I'm really, really happy to see what I do.
Yeah.
And I guess another part of social media is how connected everyone is on a personal level, remotely. So I know a lot of posts maybe encourage Black or allies to reach out to people of color, people Black and Indigenous people of color, and can have varying effects. So would y'all touch on that?
Oh yeah, reaching out to people of color right now. Jasmine, you probably start with this one because you've had some negative experiences as well.
Yeah, I think, yes, I think it's safe to say that if you're a Black person who exists in a predominantly white world right now, your emails, your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram DMs are full with people reaching out. Some of them your best friends of life, some of them you haven't talked to in literal years. And it's heavy. I think a lot of people are encouraged to reach out to their Black friends right now. I know I personally posted on social media last week, check in on your Black friends. We are not okay. And I meant that sincerely. But I think something that doesn't get touched on enough is for people who consider themselves allies to assess their relationship with the Black people in their lives. Because when somebody who I know, love, trust, is a good friend or friend period, that I have some sort of relationship with, reaches out to me in a genuine way, I am more apt to engage in a conversation with them. I am the first one to say in these situations that I reserve the right that if you reach out to me asking me for resources or whatnot, one day I might sit down and spoon feed you information, and the next day I'm cussing at you and telling you to leave me alone, don't come back. And some days somewhere in between, and I didn't really put this into words until a couple of nights ago, where we were all talking pre-panel, that the people who reach out to me that don't know me, but are saying, I'm sorry, I want to take something off of your plate, et cetera, et cetera. I feel less like that person wants to reach out to me and listen to me for my experiences, and more so as being used to share information to help them sleep at night. And if we're speaking candidly, I don't feel I am not a very, if I know you, I'm going to open up to you and I'm going to give you even more information than you probably want to know about me. But if I don't know you, you get very little from me. And the people who reach out to me asking me to share my experiences or resources that I don't know, I have a text message right now from somebody in my work network that I have not talked to since 2017 and still didn't even really talk to then, saying just that. And I don't want to engage with that person. That makes me angry. And so I think as a Black person speaking, go for it, Amel, go for it.
I think that I know exactly what you're touching on. It doesn't feel so great to feel like somebody's reaching out to the Black person in their life, especially if you can kind of know you're the only Black person in their lives. The messages that have felt really awesome to me are ones that aren't very open-ended or asking me questions of what things I need from them or what they can start to do. The questions that have felt best to me are from people who are saying things that they're doing. They're telling me that they're already taking action. And they're like, I see you, I hear you, I'm here for you, I'm working on myself, I'm working on the people around me. Like, you don't have to respond to this if you don't want to, but I just want to let you know, again, like we were talking about with social media, like, I want to let you know where I'm at. I'm not asking you to do anything for me anymore. I think that those are the messages that make me feel the best. That all being said, this is two people's experiences. These are Amel and Jasmine's thoughts and opinions.
We are not a monolith.
We are not a monolith.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. We are not a monolith. You know your interactions with the people in your life. You know your relationships. Do your own judgment call. Make sure you're not reaching out to people with your own self-interest in mind because you want some kind of credit or some points. Make sure you're reaching out because it's in your heart.
Yeah, I think that takes a lot of soul searching. And if you're soul searching while you're at it, why don't you could also search the internet, which is my awkward transition into, like, it's easy to feel super overwhelmed, and you probably, a lot of people are looking for someone to tell them what they should do to help and what they should do to learn. So we're here to kind of give y'all some specific recommendations. So y'all don't have to ask, your person of color acquaintance necessarily. So
Jasmine and I, and anybody can really chime in, Jasmine found an amazing doc. And as we have been perusing social media, we've been recognizing that a lot of the things that we're seeing people sharing are on this doc. And like, we're so grateful that people are compiling resources into one centralized place. Jazz, you can say about the document.
Yeah, it was something that I stumbled on. I don't know. I think the person who made it, it's in the doc. And if one of the mods could post a link, the title is the Anti-Racist Allyship Starter Pack. And I think I personally like the name. But when you click on the link, there are resources as a Black person, resources as a white person, resources as a person of color, a non-Black person of color ally, resources on police brutality, documentaries to watch, essays to read, books to read, public figures to follow. They are broken down into these categories, but I also recognize that when I pass this link around and share it with others, as somebody who might not have these lived experiences and is wanting to know, it can be very overwhelming, an overwhelming source of places to tap into. And so I know things that have been trickling around, but I want to echo them because I personally can validate them, are a couple of books and a doc, a couple of documentaries as well. As for reading materials, I can personally vouch for White Fragility. I think the subtitle is why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism. And then for one that's a little more deeper, but is very source heavy and factual and relatable, is The New Jim Crow. Both of those books I think are really good, but they're at different levels. And I encourage you, if you are somebody who prefers reading things versus watching things, to have a conversation. Pick a friend, a buddy or two, or reach out to your networks, whether they're your ultimate networks or your work networks, and ask who wants to start a book club. You don't have to read the whole book in one fell swoop. You can pick chunks at a time and have monthly check-ins, however frequently you want to set it, and do check-ins with each other. Read the material, digest the material, and then have that conversation. Because I think that a lot of burden comes from Black, Indigenous people of color, especially right now, Black people, of having to do that labor for our allies. And that is where I feel at least right now, almost tapped out. And it's been echoed before, but we'll echo it again, that it is not on the burden. It is not the job of the people who are marginalized or oppressed to educate those in the majority or those doing the oppressing. It is on those folks in power to educate themselves. Now, if a benevolent Black, Indigenous person of color decides to engage in conversation with you, then so be it. But it is labor on us to continually justify our existence, our emotions, our reactions to things, and not always know how that's going to be met. Whether we're going to receive somebody who is truly willing to open their minds and their hearts and listen, or if we're going to met with somebody who's defensive. Because I will be the first person to admit that when I'm told I'm wrong, I get defensive. I want to get defensive. It's a natural human reaction. And so I'm saying have those conversations with safe space networks where you can get defensive and work through it without putting that added labor, emotional labor, on your person of color. Amel, do you want to speak to the movies or add whatever?
Yeah. I think an important piece to that is that as you're doing, so like everybody, it seems like in my world on social media is kind of opening their eyes, doing a lot of reading, doing a lot of watching and listening. It's really important that to like cement that information that you're trying to have discussions about them. And like I learned from the panel yesterday that we watched, the anti-racism panel on the AUDL stream, which is still available. White people tend to listen to white people. So if you are a white person who's trying to educate yourself and you feel like you know people in your sphere that could also benefit from learning this, you should invite them to do this thing with you and use each other as soundboards to kind of work through the kinks of like what your initial thoughts and opinions are with each other and start to formulate opinions that way.
I personally have had a lot of conversations in the past week, and I think it's so important. And a big part of having those conversations is listening and being honest. And because when you're with a close friend, it's a safe space for you, so you can be honest. And then just when you say it out loud, it becomes your truth. And the documentaries that Jasmine was talking about, The Color of Ultimate ATL, I've heard a lot of people have, it's had a huge impact on a lot of people. And
it's also very appropriate for probably most of the people watching this who are Ultimate players. It's like a very clean place to start. As Ultimate players, listening to the people of color in the Ultimate community is a really easy way to start.
Absolutely. And the 13th is a Netflix documentary, so it's very accessible. It really outlines the timeline of when slavery ends to the present day, and like every step in between that has enabled oppression to still exist and continue. And it's very eye-opening. But now I think, Amel, you have a closing thought, and then we'll open it up to the chat. About
I love this analogy. Oh my God, I love it.
Well, so let me do a big preface. So last night my partner and I watched the panel that we've been alluding to, and afterwards, like a lot of people, we were having discussions about a lot of the topics we were exposed to. And one of the things, like I was just saying, white people listen to white people. My partner is white. He was thinking about the ways in which he can start talking about this stuff with his family, as I bet a lot of white people are thinking about right now. And we were brainstorming all the ways in which that would go. And I was realizing how particularly challenging the idea might be for white people. And I realized that because I think white people right now are faced with two paths forward. You can either put in a lot of work to dismantle some of your privilege and dismantle some of the systems that are working in your favor. So one path is put in some work to gain less. And another option is to put in no work, turn a blind eye, decide to be ignorant, but continue to reap the benefits that society is putting in front of you. So it seems like on the one hand, do work, get less. On the other hand, do less, gain more. Except the reason why people should be thinking this way is because it's morally right. It's the humane way. It's the way that is fair. So yeah, I just kind of was struck by these two paths forward, and that I've been thinking a lot. I watched the 13th yesterday. 13th is, among other things, has taught me about the influence of money and power and incentives on just about everything. I realized that the incentive to have these conversations with white people in your sphere is because it's right. And that isn't something that we should be trying to negotiate. That is something that should be a right and something that should be what people are doing. So yeah, that is my closing thought. A thought that I had last night that I shared with Jasmine this morning.
Yeah. And maybe Devin, before, this is something that I actually thought of like 5 minutes before we joined the call. And I think I would be remiss to say, Breonna Taylor, one of the latest victims of police brutality, would have turned 27 today. This is her birthday. And I knew it was her birthday, but then I looked up how old she was supposed to be, and she was supposed to turn 27 today. And if this hopefully humanizes the experience and puts this into perspective, into context, Breonna Taylor was in her own home, asleep. The cops were serving a no-knock warrant on the wrong house, looking for a suspect that had already been apprehended. Her boyfriend thought it was a home break-in, grabbed his gun, of which he owned legally, and fired shots. The cops fired back, 8 bullets of which landed in Breonna Taylor, killing her. And I turned 27 in 3.5 weeks. I live alone. I'm not a gun owner, but if the cops came through right now serving a no-knock warrant, I have no idea if I would live or not. And so I say this because I just hope it opens people's eyes a little bit into the world that we're living with. And this is not so far-fetched, whether or not you are a white person or not. Everybody can sympathize with being in their own home, having a home invasion. Every single 26-year-old out there right now who is living in their own home can think about what would happen if the cops broke in to serve the wrong warrant for the wrong people. But not everybody has to think about whether or not they would survive that experience. I do, we do. And so I think I would be remiss to not say that, in the hopes that we humanize this and contextualize this even more than it already has been.
Thank you for that. I had no idea. But I think maybe another point to bring up that kind of relates back to advocacy, and a reason why, especially as a white person, you should advocate, because you're safe from the oppression. Like Jasmine says, not everyone has to worry about dying from a no-knock warrant in the middle of the night. you're safe from many forms of oppression. So you can be a shield. You can be part of an organization. And if the organization is targeted, then you will probably not be thrown in jail as likely. If you're marching, you're probably not going to be, you're not as likely to be beaten. So that's how you can use your white privilege as a weapon against the people who grant you the privilege. And I guess I want to ask Heather and Tyler, is it scary to be in this position where, you know, you've got the system and police violence, and, you know, it doesn't necessarily directly affect you, and you've got angry Black people and angry white people? How does that feel? How do you get past that and actually advocate?
Just to start, I think it's scary, of course, and it's been ignored for too long. And to get through it, you have to push through it, and it might be a bit scary. But like we've talked about, we have to have those conversations. We have to confront those people. So yeah, of course, it won't be easy, but it's something that has to be done. It can't be ignored anymore.
And I think like feeling this new feeling of rage that shamefully hasn't been here this whole time, finding a way to expose that in other white people as well, to let them know, like, if you're feeling this now, this is what you guys have been feeling this whole time. And the fact that we're just feeling it now is like, that should be extra incentive to like drop that fear and just start doing something. I think there's a lot of ways to look for the correct way to do things, but the most correct way to do things is just to start. And I think that's like where like all the resources coming out it is overwhelming to get everything you've never seen before all at once, but just start.
But Tyler,
can do right now.
But Tyler, what if you do it wrong?
Try again.
Hell yeah.
know that we're all human, we're all fallible, like we're gonna mess up.
Hell yeah.
Just keep going.
Yes. Don't quit.
Fail forward.
Yeah. Fail forward. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some interesting chats that we can respond to?
Yeah. If you have your questions or have any lingering questions or thoughts or you want to pose, I promise I'll be nice. Throw them in the chat. We want to hear from you, open it up, and have sort of a real life conversation. Okay. Nicholas Sanchez, how do you suggest growing the sport among people of color in cities, communities that don't have people of color to serve as role models for youth players? Do you want to start, Amel, or I can take it either, or Devin?
I do have a little experience trying to reach out to youth of color, and I do think it's super important to have representation. So yeah, sometimes you have to figure out the right way to do it, and I don't necessarily have an answer myself.
Yeah, and if I speak to that a little bit, it is difficult if you had a team that didn't have any people of color on it and you just wanted to go into a neighborhood to start recruiting people of color. Perhaps I'd take a couple of steps back and think about, maybe not youth of color that you're trying to engage, but if you are at the college level or the club level and you notice that your community is not very diverse, why don't you have people on your teams? Even though diversity is skewed oftentimes, Santa Barbara is a very, very white place. People of color do exist. We're here. We want to play the game. We want to put in the work. And I think that this would be a perfect time to first do maybe some introspection and reflecting on implicit or explicit biases that you might have. I think maybe this is just a good time to share my literal first encounter with the sport of Ultimate and how I almost never came back after day one. A couple of people know this story, but I played volleyball in college, came to grad school, thought I'd keep playing volleyball, kind of messed up my shoulder my first year. And as a second year grad student, I had a lab mate, shout out Sarah Weinstein, played at Berkeley for the Pie Queens. She had been telling me since I joined our lab, hey, you should play Ultimate Frisbee. I think you'd have fun. And I'd be like, Sarah, Frisbee's not a real sport. Come on now. And then when I injured my shoulder and couldn't play volleyball anymore, she was like, you should play Frisbee. You'd be so good. And I was like, I mean, okay, I guess. And so I went out to the first practice. I was absolute trash. Like, I cannot stress this enough. I ran deep and maybe caught 20% of the Frisbees that were thrown to me. I was bad. Okay, bad. That's out of the way. But I had a lot of fun. At the end of the day, I play a lot of sports where I'm interacting with other people, teamwork with either, traditionally a ball of some sort, but a flat ball works too. And so the practice winds down. I'm taking off my tennis shoes. I didn't have cleats. And two people sitting next to me, two women, were asking me, oh, have you ever played Frisbee before? And I was like, no, sometimes we played in high school gym class, but it was a joke. And that person was like, wow, like, you're really good. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like, I never felt like I was so bad at a sport before in my life, but I really appreciate that. And before I could finish that thought, the other woman chimed in and goes, it's called genetics. And it was everything that I could do in my power to gather my things and get out of there as quickly as possible. I was on the phone with my mother before I got back to the car, yelling, screaming, very, very bad words, and told her I was never coming back. And you may think, I don't know, people sometimes tell these stories where they're like, oh yeah, and you may have thought that the people sitting next to me were white people, but they were non-Black people of color who engaged. So it's not that everybody has implicit and explicit biases to reflect on, because those two women were not white. And my mom, I should also throw out there, I'm mixed. My mom is a white redhead. I know she's watching. Hello, mommy. And my dad is Black. And so on the phone with my mom, I'm upset. I'm going off. And she just said, Jasmine, you've never quit something a day before in your life. So why are you going to let two people stop you now? And that's the reason why I came back. And that's the reason why I'm here today. Because I almost left and didn't come back. And so I think that little comments like that, who, you might not think they have a big impact, but it almost kept me from joining the sport. And I'm the only Black person on the team here in Santa Barbara. So if you're looking to diversify your sport and somebody of color comes to join you out of the woodwork, be genuine, go out of the way, do the education now so that you don't say things to drive them away. And that's my advice. And then once you have those people, we're more than willing to get people into the game that look like us, and the rest will flow from there.
Yeah, I'm totally with that.
Say something in the chat. Or raise your hand if you've ever had that comment said to you on the Ultimate field. It's because of genetics.
I'm so lucky.
I just want to let that fill up.
Yeah, I was gonna. Oh, yep. How do you navigate
the racist memories of the past and Ultimate? Like players who are now more woke, but said some BS before in the past. Amel?
Ooh. I know I just spoke on some, people's opinion change, let people start now. So that's true. It would be extremely hard to reconcile that when people make racist remarks in the past, especially this exact story that Jasmine was telling us. I think on the one hand, people starting to make posts right now, if they've been quiet in the past, is not a problem. People who are starting to make posts now when they've been racist in the past and have not reconciled any of their racist behavior, that's a problem. So I think the first thing that needs to happen is some kind of ownership. People recognize that they were using microaggressions, saying things to people of color that were totally out of pocket. You have to own up to those things and start realizing why they were wrong. then you could be kind of get credibility to actually kind of start posting now.
Yeah, I have a friend whose boss.
Go for it, Devin.
Oh, sorry. I have a friend whose boss is like really wealthy and votes Democrat and talks really woke, but deep down, like he can see like she's pretty racist, and she's just using this language that we put out there as a veneer and to just disguise it so she can continue to be wealthy, but also on the moral high ground. And that's something that we've really got to watch out for. And if you are that person, you know, look within yourself at what you're doing. Sorry, Jasmine.
Yeah. No, it's chill. Please chime in, whatever. I will. My mother also gave me the gift of gab, so we could be here all night long. Yeah, I think one thing that was new to me, especially moving, I was born and raised in Indiana, but which is not the most woke of places. And now I live in Santa Barbara. I go to a pretty liberal school, is dealing with people who are overtly racist versus covertly racist. And that has to do with a lot of microaggressions. And I donated to Black Lives Matter last year. So like that protects me from saying whatever I want to say for the rest of the year kind of thing. And I've had some pretty difficult conversations. I mean, I think the last example was a pretty good example of implicit bias, but truth be told, my team, the Burning Skirts, who has always had my back, thank you, we've experienced some pretty explicit things as well. I know during the 2018 season, we played a high caliber team at a high caliber tournament, and I did one of my celebrations. I was on the receiving end of the score, and I think I like waved my arms and pointed to my teammate Julia Kwasnik for making some throw. Maybe she shouldn't have thrown, but we did it and we saw it through. And the captain came up to my coach during halftime and said that I was being disrespectful to the person that I had caught the disc on, even though I actively walked away towards my teammate to celebrate them. And a couple of other chippy things came up during the game that felt like it was pretty targeted towards me. And we ended up having a conversation. I ended up having a conversation with this captain and this other player saying, look, I'm the type of person who wants to address these things. I think we should talk this out. If I made you feel uncomfortable, I'm really sorry, but I want to hear it from I want to just hear what's going on, have this conversation so we can move past. They completely shut down, didn't want to have the conversation with me, and walked away. Okay, cool. The next day, we're warming up on field side by side, and every single one of their warm-up songs was inward this, inward that, explicit everything else. I also later learned from a Black friend who played for Colorado that year that team, this is not Colorado CU quandary, but this team that we had run-ins with made it a goal at the beginning of their year as a team to try to be less racist, and like that was well known. And I'm just not really sure how you set a team goal of like try to be less racist. Does that mean you go from like being 80% racist to like 20% racist? Because like I have a zero tolerance book. And so it was just a really unfortunate experience that seemed like no matter whether I was coming in hot, angry Black woman or palatable, quiet, docile person, there was no getting past that. We have since not played that team. So I'm not really sure how I'd face them in the future, but I know that I think that everybody should have the opportunity to learn and grow from these experiences. And just because I had a negative run-in with you beforehand doesn't mean that we can't foster a relationship going forward. The door's never closed. Today is always a great day to start learning or continue to learn. Keep the questions coming.
Absolutely.
Who's going to read it? I can read it. Lots of talk on laws/regulations that need adjustments with regards to police brutality. Which elements of the ultimate community need improvements to improve access and achieve equality? Laws and regulations.
Well, first and foremost, we could have a whole conversation, but let me do away with those spirit scores for a hot second, and let's change the conversation to sportsmanship. But I know that's a hot take and a debate for another day, because I also, and I don't want to spaghetti fork this conversation and take it, but because of long story short, played a team. It was chippy. At halftime, the team comes up to my coach and says, "Hey, number 11, that's me, is being really aggressive with her calls. Can you tell her to tone it down?" My coach says, "Hey, Jasmine, you're being really aggressive with your calls. Can you tone it down?" And I say, "Oh, my cheers?" And he said, no, like the calls that you're making in the game. And I was like, "Coach, I haven't made a single call this whole game. No fouls, no picks, no nothing. The game has not stopped because of me." Game continues. It gets chippy. I just want it to be known that that team gave us a 0 out of a 0 spirit score. This was at Nationals of 2019. And the very next day, as we're preparing for our quarterfinals game, my coaches and my captains have to go have a conversation with leaders of the tournament about potential reprimands or whatnot. So first and foremost, if there is a direct, an inverse correlation between how good a team is and spirit scores. But then I also think it should be, some study should be done. I don't know how you would get the demographic data on the demographic makeup of a team and their spirit scores, because I personally know that I have been at the center of my team receiving a 0 spirit score, and I still to this day cannot tell you why, because the score that the reasons that the team gave were false. In terms of other rules and regulations, Devin, Amel, in terms of structure, I mean, I know cost.
I just want to comment on spirit.
Thing. Yeah.
I do feel two ways about spirit, because at one point I believed in it a whole lot, and like when I was in high school, and I actually used it as my religious requirement to be an Eagle Scout. There's a religious requirement, so I was like, well, I don't go to church, I don't really have a religion. I got my ultimate coach to write my recommendation, and it worked. So
good.
There's that, but it's also, like, to continue that analogy, there's no church of spirit scores, right? Everyone has a different idea of what spirit is like, and it's very in the moment as well. If you're writing a card while you're playing your opponent, it assumes that everyone has this virtuous, like, I can separate how I feel about this game from how objectively this team handled the spirit. So there are a lot of issues. I just wanted to say that.
That's so true. This might just be like a bashing spirit fest right now. But
Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
That's not the intention. We're all learning on the fly.
I didn't mean to bash it. I meant to.
Yep.
I think it's a structural problem, and there's like 4 lines about it or something in the rule book. It's not well laid out, even if people can deeply believe in spirit.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's that phrase? It's all well and good in theory, but how is it in practice? I mean, you add in the human factor of not having the greatest ability to set emotions aside from evaluating, and that's where you get your conundrum and your conflict. And I know I see the chat talking about, some people who might disagree with this and, being people of color. And we've all, like I said, we're not a monolith, but my experience is, as somebody who takes it as my job to uphold and represent my team in every situation, has been on the receiving end of maliciously using spirit scores. And when it boils down to it, there was no substance. Yeah.
Maybe we should talk about cost. Which is similarly controversial, I suppose, but we gotta address it. It costs a lot of money to travel places, and frankly, people of lower socioeconomic status, while they may get into Ultimate because of the low cost, to play at a high level, it is still fairly exclusive in that way. I don't have any great stories, but that's my intro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know the skirts. I think we also sit in a pretty privileged position as a team, because we come from like a historically recognized program and a program with a really awesome alumni network to tap into, but we do a lot of fundraising throughout the year. And I admire our coaches and our captains for every year being very explicit about, if cost is a barrier to you, if that's what's going to prevent you from playing, we'll cover your fees. We'll figure out a way to get you to play, because financial access shouldn't preclude you from joining and playing in the game. I know that's not the option for every team, but given the types of people who have had easy access to Frisbee in the past, you know, they tend to be of a wealthier class, to have more resources to tap into. I do think that more teams can put together either fundraising events or tap into the networks that they have to offset the cost of the people who can't pay.
All right, I think we've got another question coming up. Here's one. Which elements of the Ultimate community need improvement?
Which elements of the Ultimate community need improvement?
I guess we can say most need improvement.
Okay.
So I think being a person on social media, Ultimate social media needs a little bit of work. I think that this is not
I was going to say Ultimate Twitter.
I don't think this is a very new idea, but Ultimate as a community prides itself on inclusivity. And I'm also very proud that the Ultimate community stands out against a lot of systems of oppression. But I don't think that it's extremely productive to, well, somebody makes a mistake in the social sphere and we just socially drag this person around the world for sport. I think that that's something I've observed a little bit on Ultimate social media that I think needs some work.
I think that's a great point. Would we want to talk about how we can change Ultimate Twitter? # big goals.
Yeah. I know that a lot of people begin to engage in dialogue, and I enjoy watching threads ensue on Ultimate Twitter. I think that dialogue is probably the way to go about this. If your plan is to, retweet something with a meme to get tons of likes, I'm not quite sure how productive that is versus trying to engage with that person, be it offline or online, for people to see.
I can speak a little bit to Calgary's perspective on that. There's not a lot of awareness and coverage of Ultimate. We could go up to people that I work with or people that I know in the community, and I say, "Oh, I play Ultimate Frisbee," and they have no idea what that is. So I think in Canada anyway, we can do a lot of work to show people what the sports are. I know there's a lot of programs. People are trying to get into schools, and it's hard to get teachers to agree and for people to put in that time, but there's a lot of work being done to get the kids into it in school. So I think that's something that will bring a lot more people into the sport.
Yeah, I personally have been trying to infiltrate all of my non-Frisbee networks with Frisbee, whether those are my friends and family back home who say the same thing, Frisbee's not a real sport, and then I show them a highlight of people dunking left and right, or Sadie's lefty high release flick. And I also shout out to my lab from UCSB, invited them tonight. I know some people are here in the chat, but taking the time, the Ultimate community is very insular, and so it's like an echo chamber. And so I think if everybody takes the opportunity to maybe covertly slide into the networks that they have, I think there have been some new fans of Ultimate at the from my connections and pulling from other networks that I have. Oh my God, I'm so blind. Can you talk about barriers to entry for alternate? Sorry, go ahead. I can't read.
Can you talk about barriers to entry for Ultimate in regards to certain communities and people's groups?
I think we hit on this a little bit with like finances. That's a huge one. I know that we hit on this a little bit with like implicit biases, and nobody, I mean, I think for the most part, nobody really sets out in the Ultimate community to actively dissuade people from joining, but some implicit biases may leak out and affect players of color disproportionately.
Also, is really like Ultimate is played in like urban hubs, played in big cities, and also affiliated with very high level college institutions. So that's another barrier to entry. Ultimate is played in places where people are generally more wealthy. It's not even, offered in other communities.
Yeah, and I've seen this offered before about people sort of getting together with their pickup leagues and just like going into a neighborhood of color and playing. And I have mixed feelings on that, because for me as a person of color who has been on the receiving end of this savior complex, it does not do much to grab me. That's what it feels like, and can be interpreted as. And so I urge you, again, caution that if you're just going to take your pickup league, which doesn't really have many players of color, into this Black neighborhood and play, your like chances of bringing in people of color to play that game, I think, are inherently low. It's what are you doing when you're not playing Frisbee? How are you genuinely engaging with these people to get to know them on a human level, and then bringing them in? I know that touches back a little bit to when we were talking about people reaching out to their Black colleagues and friends during this time. And I'm always ready to have a conversation and engage with people that I have a genuine human connection with. But if I just meet you and I think you have an ulterior agenda, I'm guarded / moving away as quickly as I can. So I think you need to ask yourself, when a lot of community or a lot of people go into these neighborhoods of color just to play Ultimate, what are your motives? Are you willing to make human connections with people, or are you just trying to say, my team does this thing where we go into neighborhoods of color and that's check our box of responsibility? And I'm speaking very candidly here. Sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm unapologetic today. But yeah.
Do you feel the Ultimate community is more accepting offline? The important thing to note is that Frisbee Twitter is mainly highlight accounts, 200 or so elite players and coaches, directors, USAU.
That's a very good point.
Great point, Mark.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mark. And definitely needed to be, it's an addendum to what I was saying before. Right now, what I'm seeing is people in the Ultimate community are really like coming out of the woodworks to join the fight of right now. So I'd say as a whole, the Ultimate community is generally open-minded, trying to include as many groups as possible. It might just be a handful of individuals on Ultimate Twitter that give Ultimate Twitter a bad rep.
I think that speaks to concentration of power in general, that like, there's so many different there are many different incentives when you have 200 followers than when you have, your friends following you. We could go into that, but, I think it's a problem at large as well. And it relates to police brutality in some ways and capitalism. But
yeah, I know sort of beyond Twitter, but obviously, Ultiworld, who is hosting us today, that's really great. I know that because the community is so small, it's often easy to focus on those players who are in the conversation right now. And so if a game is being commented or spectated on, something that we talked about as a group when we were going to comment for this game today is that even though we had some players, Devin, one of them, who had some highlight things, we really tried to highlight almost all the individuals that we could organically fit in, because they make great plays and are doing great things as people too on both teams. And I think something going forward that we can all engage with is, who are you sharing on Twitter? Who are you engaging with recently? I know I personally have seen an influx of success or recognition from this past Frisbee season, but I am always going back to who am I connecting with on my Twitter when I'm sharing these things. I don't aspire to be somebody that the Frisbee writers talk about over and over and over again. I aspire to be somebody who is a gateway to bringing so many more with me. And I think we can all, when we're thinking about sharing things on Twitter, if you're sharing the same highlights or recognition or the same player over and over, who else are you leaving behind? I think this goes to like our Callahan videos that get shared on a lot of social media platforms. And you already know the schools who come from big top elite programs get more recognition than those who don't. And there are I watched so many Callahan videos this year alone of players who came from schools that I didn't even know had a Frisbee team, and they were so good. And so what are we doing for those players who deserve just as much recognition as the players who come from the big schools? How are you engaging with them? And I think once we start to sort of expand our net on who we're talking about, we'll reach more people naturally.
I'm having lots of discussions with
about what's going on.
Go ahead.
A recurring question is, as a white ally, what do you want me to do? There's a lot of feelings of fear and hesitation about what to do. There are so many avenues forward for everybody. There's education, there's discussion, there's learning about voting opportunities in your area, there's protesting. I'd say so long as what you're trying to do, first of all, first step is trying to educate yourself. A lot of the systems that need to be worked on are somewhat invisible to most of us. So I would suggest looking into the resources that we were linking before. But also what you're doing, what you do moving forward is so up to the individual, so long as what you're doing is authentic to you.
Also, at the risk of opening the floodgates, maybe I have a petty bone in my body, but something that I have experience with because I come from a mixed family, white family, black family, I am the type of person who doesn't shy away from difficult conversations, and I am all for calling people out when I think it's wrong. And as somebody who is in this spot of having peers to call out, family members to call out at the dinner table, whether that's at, your 4th of July cookout or your Christmas dinner, I am not letting my silence validate people any longer. I'm calling you out. If you want to have that conversation, let's go and move forward. But I will say, at the risk of opening my DMs to a floodgate, if you drag somebody and called somebody out for the right reasons, it gives me so much energy to see allies like standing up for people of color and coming for people in the wrong. So if you called somebody out today, this week, this month, or going forward, and you just want to say, hey, Jasmine, saw some crazy stuff go down, couldn't stand it, so I stood up for it. That is an action item that I will always enjoy seeing, and it costs you nothing. Maybe some social capital, but if those are the people that are in your social network and they're not going to change even after these hard conversations, what are they good for? And I say that as somebody who has very overtly racist people in my family. We could whole nother conversation for a whole nother day on that, but I'm always for it.
Really quick, I want to ask the question, hey guys, who are all of you support the BLM push for #defund the police? Have y'all thought about that at all? Or like, there's a movement, defund the police, and it is
right.
It is about Have y'all heard of that?
I know what the movement is. I'm guessing, is this person just wanting to know what our personal preferences are on whether we want to defund the police? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
If y'all are comfortable with that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think transferring that money somewhere good can help a lot, and I think that education, policing doesn't necessarily make people safer. It makes people maybe feel more caged in and more scared. And I think if you turn those, cops into teachers, then I think you certainly will do a lot more good. And that kind of transitions to. I just want to say that like this is one solution that people have proposed. There are many, and I don't want this movement to just fizzle out like so many movements. In addition to those other resources, I would recommend looking up some action items that you can support politically that can help. Maybe this is your avenue. Maybe it is funding education through some other means. Reduce, policing the police, new training programs for the police, whatever it is, there's actually things that are being proposed right now. And I think this is a good time for everyone to think about what they want and then talk about that.
Yeah, and I think that it's also important to say there's not a one solution fits all for the problems that we're facing in our country right now. And I also think that, folks who, with using an example such as like defund the police, it's a radical idea for sure. But if we're not opening our minds, opening our hearts to possibilities, where are we going to go? I mean, if we just think back, it was once a radical idea to end slavery in this country. And here we are. It was once a radical idea to give Black people, Indigenous people, women the right to vote. But here we are. I mean, we still have so much progress to be had. But every single revolution starts with a radical idea. And if we're not even open to considering the solution or solutions to moving forward as a productive and inclusive society, if we're shutting down those options from the get-go, how are we aiding in moving our country forward?
It's 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So, thanks. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Amel and Jasmine and Heather and Tyler for being here to commentate. Thank you everyone who asked questions. Thank you everyone for donating. Speaking of which, donate because it's the best deal you'll ever get donating. You get an Ulti World subscription and a jersey if you donate $50. And I know we've all been looking for avenues to do this, so this is the perfect one, I think. It goes to knowyourrightscamp.com.
Then go to Reclaim the Block.
Reclaim the Block. That's right.
Yes, Reclaim the Block. Devin, you're a part of so many social movements right now. Reclaim the Block.
Yeah, I've been doing too much research on them, so they get confused in my head. But anyway, yes. So anybody have any more closing thoughts?
Thank you all for taking the time.
And Charlie too.
Oh yeah,
yes,
thank you, Ultra. Thank you, Charlie.
Yes, thank you, Ultra and Charlie, for running this.
Thank you, Tyler and Heather, for being here and joining in this conversation. I know we had established early that the platform would be mainly for Amel and I to share experiences and stories, but I don't think true allies get enough credit for showing up and putting in work. And I would just like to validate you all for being with us today and for everybody watching. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was great.